good evening. Welcome to the Tunnel Podcast, episode 44 of the greatest podcast in the world. Here we are on Tuesday night, not Monday night, yes, because obviously there's a big game last night which we're going to go through. Yes, loads and loads to talk about. The title race has certainly come to life. Joining me tonight, as always, Tom Goff. Tom, how are we doing?
Yes, mate. Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, bud. Like I said, I'm had a bit of every weekend and a bit of six-a-side tonight, and I'm suffering a little bit. I'm a little bit tender, so.
Listen, for people that are not watching, Tom's been down in London watching Snow Patrol. How were they? All right, good, decent.
Yeah, they were good, man. I tell you what, like I'm not a massive fan of theirs. Like I know a few of their hits and all the rest of it, but yeah, they were really good, mate. Top night. But yeah, like I said, drank a bit too much over the weekend, and then six-a-side tonight was always going to be tough, mate. So.
And Irish bars to all hours, and then knocking about with David Lopan afterwards. Yeah, a great weekend.
Mate.
I hope you've done your homework. I hope you've been watching the footy, because there's been loads and loads going on. We are going to start at Elland Rd last night. Going in, let's start from that. Actually, going into this, we'd said, I think on when did we last do a pod? Was it Thursday?
Yeah.
So Thursday, you'd said, Sunderland, this is what they want. They're going under the radar. There's no pressure on them. And then they go into the game, they go 1-0 up, and you're thinking, hold on a minute here, Sunderland are going to have a say in this title race.
Yeah, that's it, mate. Like we said last week, I think Sunderland before the weekend's fixtures, I felt that they were still kind of in that automatic promotion mix, and like you said, I felt they'd probably, obviously they'll want as many points on the board as possible, but in terms of them, like you said, being under the radar slightly, every time I've seen people discussing the automatic promotion race, they're not getting mentioned much. It's Leeds, Burnley, Sheffield United, and I said that could work out for them. In the no one's talking them up, takes a little bit of pressure off of them. They're kind of there, lingering. Just behind these guys, but then we both said, didn't we, that ideally though they need to get something from the game against Leeds, last night to they have to try and not lose that game, at least get a point from that game to kind of remain in that mix. And like you said, first half, they're 1-0 up. Again, I didn't watch the game live. Unfortunately, I was on my way back from London, but I've caught the extended highlights today, and I think they were probably deserving of that lead going into the halftime break. And look, it's no surprise. This Sunderland team. They're a really good team. They're having a great season. On their day, when they're playing their best football, that's what they can do. They can beat absolutely anybody in the division. So you're thinking, can they push on now, cause a big shock, get the 3 points against Leeds, bring themselves, back well and truly into that, automatic promotion chasing bunch, and throw a bit of a spanner in the works. Burnley and Sheffield United would have obviously been absolutely buzzing, if Sunderland were able to get the win as well. But it wasn't to be, was it?
Look, first half they were really good. I thought they had a game plan. It worked well. The finish from Isidore is top notch. You and I spoke maybe 10 days ago saying we need to put more respect on this man's name. He's actually been a really good value for money signing. A lot of talk, is he actually the best marksman in the division? I'll leave that up to you to decide. However, it seemed to be a bit of a tale of two halves. I kind of thought Leeds in the first half looked like they're playing like a side who've put themselves under a bit of pressure. There was obviously a bit of expectancy in the crowd as well. It had a big game feel to it, and they didn't start the game as I had imagined. That it wasn't as gung ho. It wasn't this basketball game that I don't know if you saw the build up that Michael Bridges and Neil Warnock were saying this is going to be a basketball game. There's 4 of the best wingers in the division on show today. It's destined to have goals, and it didn't quite pan out at that first half.
Yeah. These big games, they always flatter to deceive a little bit, don't they? I always think, they always get hyped up way too much, because what happens more times than not is these teams, when they're quite evenly matched, the best teams in the division, they end up just cancelling each other out, don't they? And like you said, Sunderland, they are very good at frustrating, I guess, and then implementing that fantastic press of theirs, and frustrating the opposition and making it difficult for them. We all know that they've got a great, defense, back line, very well organised. They don't concede many goals. So, yeah, I think that was their game plan, wasn't it? Was to try and keep tight, well organised, frustrate Leeds, initiate the press when they were supposed to. And, yeah, game plan was to a T. And like I said, you mentioned Isidore there. Yeah, he's making me well and truly eat my words. It wasn't that long ago, was it, where I was kind of saying this guy might be the a bit of a thorn in their side, in that he wasn't taking enough chances. He was getting plenty of opportunities, but he just wasn't putting the chances away, or it was taking him 4 or 5 chances before he was scoring one. Yeah, these kind of last kind of month and a half or so, he's been absolutely formidable for him, hasn't he? Like you said, he's been real rich vein of form. Not only is he scoring goals, though, his all-round game seems to improve, and it all seemed to come after, those 2 penalty misses against Burnley. I think you got to applaud him in that he's shown some real character. Those 2 penalty misses, it could have had the opposite effect. It could have, it really affected him, and his performances
It could have derailed his season, couldn't it, really?
It could have ruined his season. Yeah, exactly that. But, he deserves a lot of credit in that, to be honest, he's come back even better since then. He's just improved considerably. Like I said, he's scoring goals regularly. He's taking his chances. He's getting 1 or 2 and he's putting one away every time. So, yeah, he's looking, he's in great form at this moment in time. Perfect timing for Sunderland, really, going into the last leg of the season. And like you said, yeah, he's looking real value for money. So, yeah, Sunderland fans will be absolutely, buzzing what they're getting from him right now. But, yeah, just coming back to what you were saying, it was, yeah, Sunderland were fantastic in that first half, but I think they're going to be disappointed, aren't they, that they weren't able to maybe score another and be in a bit more of a comfortable position going in at half time. 1-0, it's always a dangerous scoreline, isn't it? And I think, with Leeds, you always expect them to come back strong at some point. Half time probably came at the wrong time for Sunderland, didn't it? Leeds obviously get back.
Oh, have we lost him?
I'm back.
Yeah, back.
Struggling a little bit. I've got my phone here ready, mate, if it cuts off. But
no worries.
Yeah, Leeds got back in at half time. Farker obviously had words with him, reorganise, tweak things possibly, and yeah, they come back out second half. Bit more determination, bit more tempo. Obviously looking to get back into the game.
Yeah, look, what I will say is it's the first time I'd kind of really cast eye over Trey Hume. I thought he was excellent first half. Really kind of no nonsense. I don't know if you saw the one on, well, he had a couple on. Solomon actually got booked for one early in the second half, but his one in the first half was a really sort of, throwback tackle. He impressed me. I love a little moustache as well, the little moustache look with the mullet. Yeah, like that. Second half, though, Daniel Farke sort of makes the changes, and we see, obviously, them coming to fruition. So, he earns his crust, certainly. A lot will be made about, the centre half coming on and scoring the 2 goals, but I really thought that Joe Rothwell was kind of, I don't think he got enough credit for the way he played. He seems to be instrumental. You'd picked him out in a game, I think maybe sort of 2-3 months ago that we were discussing. You said you a player that you liked.
Yeah, I've always liked him. He's he previously played for Blackburn in the division and Bournemouth as well. And I said at the start of the season, everyone was kind of talking about the guys that departed Leeds, and rightly so. They lost some big names in the summer, but I mentioned the signing of Rothwell, and that could be a signing that goes under the radar a bit because, he's a top midfielder at this level. He hasn't been playing much. I think he's had some injury problems at Bournemouth, hasn't been getting in the first team. So he'll be absolutely chomping at the bit to make an impression at Leeds. And yeah, it took him a little bit to get going, but him and Tanaka have, just kind of locked down that midfield pairing, haven't they, for some time now? Real solid partnership, and I think Tanaka's obviously been getting more of the plaudits. It's understandable, he's been popping up with a few more goals and a few more assists and so on. But Rothwell has been playing fantastically well alongside him, and a couple of brilliant set piece, a couple of brilliant deliveries to get the 2 goals for Struich. And like you touched on, the substitutions that we were saying, weren't we, at the end of the transfer window in January? You were kind of saying, Leeds going to be disappointed that they weren't able to make any signings, but we were then kind of going through their squad and the options that they've got off the bench, and we were still kind of saying they've got probably the best squad in the Championship still, with the guys that they can bring off the bench in games. So, and they just kind of showed that, I feel, in the second half. They needed to freshen things up, players to come on and have an impact and try and get back into the game, and they did exactly that. So, yeah, it was. I tell you what, massive win for Leeds because, yeah, you're right. They definitely showed a bit of nerves. People are obviously now starting to, everyone's been talking them up throughout the course of the season, but I feel like of late, because they've been winning so well on this great run of form, just, kind of rolling teams over, there was a bit of pressure on them, wasn't there, last night to kind of show, that kind of winner's mentality. Can they beat, one of the other division's best at home, big game on the TV? And look, they managed to do it. I know they left it late. They managed to do it. But, yeah, this is why I think, there's a different Leeds to seasons of past, in that I think they've just got a bit more about them this season in terms of, doing what needs to be done. Like I said, I know they left it late against Sunderland, but I just think that shows, their mentality, that kind of camaraderie amongst the squad this season. They're all really enjoying playing alongside one another. Like I said, we called it a bit back, didn't we? We just can see Leeds going from strength to strength, and they're doing that.
You mentioned there, obviously, mentality. You mentioned some of the additions. Tanaka's really, I think £4 million, real value for money. Willie Gnonto can't even get on the pitch at the minute because how well that the midfielders are playing. I was interested. Leeds, it's only the second time this season that they've won a game in which they've gone behind. I think there's been 9 occasions now, and that's only the second time they've won the game. They have drawn a few of those games, albeit. Is that something that shocked you, or is it more the fact that they, is this kind of mentality they're just going to get, if they do go behind, they are getting something from the game rather than losing it?
Yeah, it's a little bit surprising. Like you said, in 9 games where they've gone behind, they've only managed to come back twice and get the 3 points. Yeah, it probably is a little bit surprising. I wouldn't be surprised that maybe some of those results came a bit earlier on in the season where they, I felt that they were in that that interim stage, so to speak. Where that kind of all the guys they lost in the summer and the new signings coming in. I did feel there was that kind of. There was a few months, wasn't it, where they were dropping a few points and the new guys were bedding in, and I felt like Farke was, still trying to work out who his favoured starting 11 was going to be. But yeah, look, this is, seasons past. This is where Leeds have come unstuck. That they've dropped too many points. And they were losing points from winning positions, and like I said, towards the business end of the season, the pressure really got to them, and they struggled, and it told come the end of the season. But it doesn't look like that's going to be the case this season. I know we've still got 15, 14 games or whatever it is to go. Still a lot of points to play for, but yeah, I'd be absolutely astonished if Leeds were to blow it now. Like I said, it was a good close game on Monday night, but. Yeah, I think, again, that win is just going to do their confidence, the absolute world of good. They were full of confidence before the game, but I think after that win, the manner in which they won it, kept going to the very end, in front of their home fans, put more distance between them and Sunderland. Yeah, they're just going to keep going from strength to strength, I feel.
Like you mentioned, that distance at half time, we would have had Sunderland and Burnley both on 65. Leeds would obviously have been still on, I think, 69. Sheffield United would have been on 70. So it would have been really interesting in terms of a title race with all four grouped in. Look, Sunderland must be not kicking themselves or upset, but you think, that Bielsa side kind of 5 years ago, the points total they had, Sunderland have now. Sunderland would be in the top 8 times out of the last 10 seasons. Now, it harks back to that argument of defence we put up with the league maybe 3-4 weeks ago, where people were saying there's a lack of quality. Well, that surely blows that right out of the water, because the top sides are picking up more points than they have been previously.
Yeah, I think, well, that's it. It has been a bit of an odd season, hasn't it? Because you're right. I think, last season there was only really kind of 2 teams that ran away with it. But I feel that, this season there's been this 4-horse race, hasn't it? Ultimately, I know, like, there's a bit of a gap as kind of grew now between Sheffield United in second, on 70 points, and Sunderland in fourth on 62. But it's only of late that gap has formed. It's been very close, hasn't it, up until now? So, we've said many a time we don't believe that argument. I just think it's kind of just a lazy take, isn't it? Like you said, I think there's proof there that, it's getting harder to get into those automatic places. Basically, I do think there's a bit of an argument there in that the rest of the league is balancing itself out more. I do believe that, and we'll probably get onto that in a bit with the playoff chase and how many teams are in the mix for that. So I do think there's a bit of an argument there, and that kind of power shift, so to speak. There's more teams on an even level playing field, I think, in the Championship this season. But it does show you that there's still quality, and those teams are, like you said, they're putting more points together than teams before them at this stage of the season. So, I think it's nonsense, to be honest.
You seen the clip of Bogle sort of sending Lefay for a hot dog? That seems to be doing the rounds all day today, which I felt a little bit harsh, because I thought Lefay was actually not too bad in the first half. But that's going to ring round for a few weeks yet, especially if Leeds go on to go up in Sunderland, having brought him in for the big high fee and all the rest that came with it. Just quickly, no, you go.
I was just going to say, mate, this the thing with Sunderland is I do worry about them this season if they aren't able to go up, because, you touched on Trey Hume, we all know about Joe Bellingham. Obviously, Enzo Lefay isn't their player. I think he only stays if they are able to get into the Premier League. They've got a lot of real promising youngsters who I feel it will be very difficult for them to keep hold of if they don't go up this season. Look, they're going to get a lot of money for them, undoubtedly. We've talked about before, that they're much better, well-run club now than they were in the past. But then, being able to replace them, it's going to be difficult, isn't it? There's some real gems they've got there at this moment in time. So, it's going to be a tricky one for them, I feel, in the summer. Even if they end up in the playoffs, I think they're going to be the favourites, aren't they, for the playoffs?
I was going to say, I'd fancy them in the playoffs. I really would.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that, they'd fancy themselves. I don't think, whereas some seasons, if a team misses out on automatic promotion, it does then seem to affect them in the playoffs. I don't think that would be the case with Sunderland, because I feel like, they've exceeded their expectations. I think their aim would have been to get into the playoffs. I think they've exceeded their expectations with, challenging, for a top 2 position. But I think if they weren't able to get up, there'll be a lot of nervous Sunderland fans, because they seem to have a real crop of youngsters there at this moment in time who there's going to be some bigger fish undoubtedly come calling for them in the summer if they don't get in the Prem.
Just on that, actually, Chris Rigg became the second youngest ever player to reach 50 Championship appearances last night. Ryan Sessegnon only beat him by 18 days, so he still holds the record. Chris Rigg is a great player, great talent. Okay, just quickly, because we'll delve into this one in more detail on Thursday night's pod, because we'll review the weekend's fixture. But next Monday night, mate, Leeds travel down to Bramall Lane against Sheffield United. That is going to be, game of the season. Is it, on paper?
Oh yeah, it's definitely the biggest game of this season so far, isn't it? Well, yeah, top two, slugging it out. Sheffield United, for all that we've been, I wouldn't say we haven't kind of.
We haven't hammered them.
We haven't hammered them or anything like that, but we've just kind of said that they've been stuttering a little bit of late, haven't they? I know they've had a couple of good results of late, but prior to then, they were winning a lot of games 1-0. And they're a little bit fortunate in some of the matches. Look, they were still getting the 3 points. They were still doing what needed to be done, but they weren't playing as convincingly as they were earlier on in the season, where it looked like they were going to steamroll the division. They've been having to really graft to kind of keep pace with Leeds. But look, again, you got to give them huge credit for that. We're talking about how good Leeds have been of late. Blowing all the opposition away. Well, Sheffield United are only 2 points behind them. So, yeah, they're having a fantastic season. And, yeah, what a game that's going to be. I'm just really looking forward to that one. It's going to be an absolute cracker. Sheffield United have got home advantage, which I feel then kind of levels the playing field a little bit more. But yeah, we just spoke about Leeds, and they're going to be absolutely buzzing after that stoppage time win against Sunderland. And, their mentality, their mindset will be, well, if we can beat Sheffield United, we go 5 points clear of them. So, yeah, everything to play for. So it's going to end up 0-0 draw, innit? Absolute ball fest, mate.
Listen, it'll be I'm confident it won't let us down. It can't.
I think so. Yeah.
We'll speak a little bit more about that on Thursday night's pod if we can. We see if we can get someone on as well. But yes, we'll part that. We had a good friend Stefan a couple of weeks ago, didn't we? Talking about Swansea and will he want to go, and they just beat Bristol City and saying no, I think Steph was telling us no, he'll get to the end of the season, he'll be okay, he's the man, and here we are. He has been given his jotters, as a good friend Connor used to say. He's been sacked. He's been put out of his misery. The writing was on the wall after the Stoke game. It's 1 win in 9. I think he's he's just not managed to turn it round since the new year.
Yeah, that's it, mate. I think that win against Bristol City, that saved his job, I feel like, and like we said when we had Stefan, wasn't it, the lad? That was it Stefan? Was it his name? Yeah, when we had him on, we were saying that they've got to push on from this now. That one win isn't going to be enough. He's got to try and put a couple of results together, get some more points on the board, try and build from that Bristol win, and I think they had Sheffield Wednesday, didn't they? Was it Sheffield Wednesday at home, I think? And then they've obviously lost against Stoke away at the weekend. 2 games on paper where, I know Sheffield Wednesday are a tough team, but at home, you got to try and looking to get something from the match, and unfortunately, they haven't been able to follow that promising performance up against Bristol. Lost both those games. I think it's the manner as well in which they lost to Stoke. Stoke are obviously down there, similar position to themselves, having a poor season, have been struggling. They've come away 3-1 winners. Watch the highlights from that game. Stoke probably could have had a few more goals, to be honest with you. Swansea board have made the decision to get rid of him. And like you said, it's one of those really where you can't really argue with the logic. Sometimes, teams get rid of managers and you think, is that the right decision? Have they made a bad call there? I don't think you can say that given how poor a run they've been on. But the thing I would say, and I was kind of doing a little bit of reading up on this beforehand, is that I think that the issues lie deeper than the manager with Swansea. As Stefan was saying, he was talking about when they brought in Michael Duff and they brought in a new kind of technical director alongside him. They brought in 13, 14 new players. A vast majority of them have just flopped. Michael Duff didn't last very long. Williams has come in now. He hasn't lasted very long. So, to be fair to Williams, I don't think he had the best backing of the club. There seems to be a lot of mistakes have been made, over the last couple of seasons. I don't think their turnover of players, especially the players that they brought in, has been very good whatsoever. So, I think it needs to be said that it's not all Luke Williams' fault. I think the board have got a responsibility here as well. I think their decision making over the last couple of seasons hasn't helped whatsoever either.
But we spoke as well about the link to West Brom, then the selling of the captain, arguably the best player.
Yeah.
The timing of this sort of stuff hasn't helped him. We highlighted that on the show with Steph that just prior to Christmas they were as high as 9th in the division. He was real flavour of the month at that point, getting linked to obviously the West Brom job as well, and then I don't have a real sort of fondness for the manager, but his attitude seemed to change slightly. His tact seemed to change in post-match press conferences. You saw against Bristol City, keeping them on the pitch in the huddle, and we're together. We're going to be here. He'd said when asked about the West Brom job, "No, I'm here. I've only had the starter at Swansea. I'm still waiting on the main course." So things like this to say that he was going to be hanging around, it was maybe more of a long-term project, but it's just not worked out.
Yeah, it's just not worked out. I think, I think the aim was for it to be a bit of a long-term project because, again, I think that Swansea also brought along the technical director who was at Notts County, who worked alongside Williams when he had success at Notts County. He was brought across as well. So I think, the aim was for it to be a bit of a project and to give Williams a bit of time, but I just think the poor run that they're on and how quickly that they're sliding towards those relegation places. They're one of the probably only behind Luton probably in terms of teams in who have got worse form than them. So they've obviously hit the panic button, haven't they? They've obviously thought we're only heading in one direction here. Like you said, we were hoping to get a reaction after that Bristol City win. We haven't got it. We've just been beaten convincingly by a team who's down here with us scrapping. We got to try and bring someone in the hope that they can kind of, get a response and we can start putting some points back on the board. But again, I was having a quick look before we went live as to some of the names that are being linked. At this minute, the favourite's Des Buckingham, who obviously got sacked.
Well, listen, hold that. We will come on to that. I want to save that for the last thing we talk about. Okay. Hold that thought. So I'm just going to read you a statement from the Swansea chairman, Andy Coleman. He said this has been a difficult decision and one that's not been taken lightly. Luke has led the club through some challenging periods, and we appreciate his hard work. I'm aware of the effort he and his staff have put in throughout the last 13 months for Swansea City. I want to personally thank Luke, Ryan and George for their dedication and sacrifices they've made on behalf of the club. Unfortunately, since the turn of the year, the performances and results have not been at the standard required at this level. Ultimately, that has led to us to conclude a change is required in order to bring an improvement in their showings on the pitch. It looks like it's Alan Sheehan that's going to be an interim charge for the visit of Blackburn on Saturday. Blackburn actually flying high, 2 wins out of 2 for Dave Lowe, an interim charge there. So it's battle of the interim bosses on Saturday. You mentioned there, stole my thunder slightly, but
sorry,
it's all right. You've done your homework. I love that. I didn't say that at the start. So you've mentioned there some of the names that have been sort of put out there. Des Buckingham, the favourite. Russell Martin for a return. And then you've got Alan Tate, Rob Edwards. I think Rob Edwards would be keen on that one, to be sure. But I listened to Steph, actually, before I came on, and he threw Ryan Mason's name into the ring. I think he's coach now at Tottenham. But as you say, much like the Blackburn job, there's not really someone jumping out at you, say, is there? And if as you say, this could be a similar to Blackburn appointment in that they're going to have to work under difficult circumstances.
Yeah, obviously there's a difference in that Blackburn are obviously sitting in a much prettier position than Swansea, but yeah, I just feel there's, like you said, the names that are being linked to both jobs. I don't think there's anything that just really kind of excites. Like I said, it'd be interesting to get a take of a Blackburn or Swansea fan to see what they think. I could be getting this completely wrong, but from me as a neutral looking in and the names, the favourites for these jobs, I just think, it almost comes across a bit like slim pickings. Swansea fans surely, the links tonight to Des Buckington. I've seen odds short as evens for him to be to get the job. Well, he's a guy who obviously was sacked earlier on in the season by Oxford because they were starting to do exactly what Luke Williams has been sacked for. They were sliding down towards the relegation zone. So just I can't see what the logic is there whatsoever. The links to Russell Martin and Steve Cooper because they previously managed the club. I just think that's pure kind of there's no way that's happening. I'll be absolutely astonished if they were to convince either Russell Martin or Steve Cooper to come back because of what I was just saying then, that the situation that the club are in at this moment in time. They have very little money to spend. I think both those guys will be looking to go into a team where it's just they'd have a bit more backing from the board, a bit of money to splash. I think they've earned that right due to what what they've achieved so far in their managerial career. Going to Swansea now, this club is in a much different place than when, especially when Steve Cooper was in charge. He got him into the playoffs. Even Russell Martin a few seasons ago, I think they've kind of regressed quite a bit since then as well. So, yeah, like you said, Rob Edwards. I think
is Rob Edwards a better shout? The fact that he may have worked under tighter budget at Luton when getting them up, and
Well, that's why I think Rob Edwards would be a good fit for both Blackburn and Swansea. To be honest with you, I think for like you said, the fact when he came in at Luton and he took them up into the Premier League, he had hardly anything to work with. He had to make do with what he had really and get a reaction from the team. And then even when he was in the Premier League with Luton, he didn't splash much cash. They give it a bit of a fight. Look, all right, it's not worked well for him this season with Luton. Obviously, he got the sack, but we've explained what we think was the reasoning behind that. I don't think a lot of it, I think, was kind of external and mindset from the previous season and not being able to refresh the squad, etc. Obviously, he has to take a proportion of the blame. He's the man in charge. He's the man making the decisions. But I don't think he's come out too bad. Him getting sacked, I still think he'd be a good pull for someone like Swansea or Blackburn at this point in time. So, yeah, if Swansea was to go and bring in Rob Edwards, I think he'll be an improvement on Luke Williams. I think that would be a good appointment for him.
Just finally on this one as well, do you think Swansea are in any real danger? Do you think that there's worse teams than them? It's 7 points between them and 8 points between them and Derby, 7 between them and Hull.
Yeah, I think that they might just be all right because of, like you said, the amount of teams that are in the mix. The gap as things stand now. Look, the thing with Swansea as well is I do think that there's they've got a kind of sprinkling of talent in that team, and when they do show up and perform, they can be. They can be a good side. They can give even the better teams in the division a bit of a scare, but they just don't do it anywhere near enough. And like we said when we were talking to Steph last time round, they've just had this real soft underbelly to him this season. It's been far too easy to score goals past them. Williams was another one of these, in my opinion, who he had this philosophy that he just was adamant that that's how they had to play in absolutely every game. Real reluctance to kind of mix things up, in order to try and kind of start getting some points on the board. So, yeah. And I think, again, like I said, I think Rob Edwards coming in, I think, he would do that. I don't think he is one of these who has a strict philosophy playing out from the back. We do that absolutely every time. I think he would realise that they've got to get better defensively. He'd work on that first and foremost, and go from there, and be willing to kind of adapt and play differently against different opposition and so on. So, yeah, I think they will. I think they will just about be all right. But saying that though, mate, look, if they continue to keep losing games, they will get pulled into it. So, I don't think you can say, guaranteed they'll be safe. I just think because there's so many teams down there scrapping, and they have got a bit of a gap, in terms of points at this point in the season, they should just be all right, I feel.
Okay, there is a game tonight. Preston are hosting Millwall. It's the second of a 2-game ban for Paul Heckingbottom. He'll be up in the gantry watching this one. It is 1-1 between Preston and Millwall. About 20 minutes left to play. Just on that, actually, the fallout from the weekend. I don't want you to get drawn in too much, but I do want your opinion on the Osmajic Hannibal situation. I don't know what you've seen, read, heard. I watched the game live. Couldn't really see much regarding the incident itself. It's kind of Osmajic's mouth was blocked by Hannibal's lovely long locks. However, his reaction, Scott Parker's reaction, is it a misunderstanding? What's your take of it?
It's difficult, isn't it, in these situations, because it's his word against, it's just that it's his word against the other, isn't it? There doesn't seem to be any players, or from what I've seen and read, any of the other players have come out and kind of said, I heard it, definitely said it, that's the way he intended it, etc., etc. So, it's his word against the other. The only thing I would say is, like you said, I've seen his reaction, go straight to the ref, tries to walk off, doesn't he? He's obviously.
I thought at one point he was going to just go off. He was going to just take.
Yeah. So he's. This is the thing. He has obviously interpreted it like that. Whether then it's kind of breakdown in translation or whatever, communication, etc. What's the Preston striker's name? I always forget his name. Osmajic. Yeah. Whether there's, but the fact of the matter is this, is that he's said something that's obviously upset Hannibal. He's, interpreted it this way, because you can just tell from his reaction. But then again, like you said, it's difficult to prove, isn't it? The only thing I would say is that, what's his name? Osmajic. He's got a bit of previous, and he obviously was banned early on in the season for biting.
Hold on a minute. I put that up on TikTok and was advised, what has that got to do with this situation? Hannibal was also suspended for a kick on someone. So
there's a bit of a difference between kicking someone and biting someone on the neck, sinking your teeth into him. The guy, and I've seen the guy a few times as well. He has got nutcase like written all over him. He is undoubtedly a loose cannon. Look, you can't, like I said, there's no way anyone's going to know what if he meant what he said the way he meant it, or whether he meant something else. But
I'll put a disclaimer out here because I'm going to swear. So if you don't like what I'm going to say, then maybe tune off. But allegedly, he's meant to have said, fuck you, bad man, is what he's saying. And Hannibal's saying he had black man.
Like, this is the other thing. Like, who says F you, bad man? Like, come on. Like, again, that's a bit sus, isn't it? Like, what does that even mean? That also kind of hints that he's realised what he said and thought, well, how the hell am I going to get out of this? Oh, I'll just change and I'll just claim that I said this and not what I did say. All I'll say to you is that I'm based on previous, and I would be more inclined to believe Hannibal Medri than I would the Preston lad.
Just on the EFL, on the EFL itself, impossible to surely hold court on this.
Yeah, they can't unless an official's heard it, unless people on the sideline, players heard it. There's absolutely no way that they can side one way or the other. I don't see how they can. I think it's playing a very dangerous game if they do side with one or the other. I think they've just got to come out and clearly outline that there's not enough evidence here to support Hannibal's claim, and that's just the situation, unfortunately. Like I said, there's been similar cases in the past, hasn't there? But other players in the vicinity or officials or someone has heard, and they have then obviously backed up and said, I heard what was said, etc., etc. But it doesn't seem like that's the case this time round. So, I don't see how they can side one way or the other with it. But like I said, I do think that press he's got to be careful now, because the biting incident, he's getting a bit of a bad reputation for himself. He has got to be careful.
Well, someone on our TikTok page drew comparisons to Luis Suarez, RE biting and potential racism, but I don't think we'll be seeing Osmajic at the Nou Camp anytime soon. Okay. Right, Michael Carrick. Michael Carrick, what is going on at Middlesbrough? We spent the first 3 months of this podcast waxing lyrical about Borough and how great that squad was and how much attacking prowess it is. I saw the game at the weekend. They look a side with no confidence, no direction, nothing's falling for them. He gets the dreaded vote of confidence this morning. It's not looking great.
No, mate, it's not. And like you said, it is baffling, but you're right. They just look completely void of any confidence at this moment in time. And Carrick just doesn't look like he's got the ability to kind of instill that back into him. It definitely looks like there's something wrong there, doesn't it? Like the rot started to set in. Like you said, the dreaded vote of confidence. I never feel that that's a good thing when the board chairman, whoever, has to come out and say, his job's safe, because that just, it obviously kind of just confirms that the moans and groans are just getting louder and louder, aren't they? The fan base are unhappy, and look, and rightly so, in my opinion. I honestly feel like out of all the teams chasing for the playoffs, they have got the best, tools at their disposal to get one of those spots. We take the top four out of the equation, that big group who are then chasing for those last two spots. I think if a team was to miss out, how big a failure it would be. I think Middlesbrough would be the biggest, 100%. I think we're close, very close behind them. We might get onto that a little bit, but I think Borough would be the biggest in terms of the players Carrick's got available to him, the money that he's spent of late. I know they lost Latte Laugh in the January transfer window, which was a big blow, but I did then feel that they brought in Iheanacho, they brought in Whittaker from Plymouth. I did feel that they made some good additions before the window closed. So yeah, it's very odd, but like I said, I understand 100% why the Borough fans are getting angry, because I just feel that they should be clear, mate. They shouldn't be in the position they're in. They should be at the very least sitting in the playoffs, in a comfortable-ish position. A bit of distance between them and the chasing pack. That's, and I think the Middlesbrough fans are with me on that. I think that's what they think as well. I don't think they feel that they should be, pushing Leeds and Sheffield United and Burnley for those automatic promotion spots. But I do feel that the fans think they should be in those playoff spots, sitting pretty, and I agree with them on that. I think like I said, the squad that they have, they should be doing much better, mate.
Look, there is as low as 11th tonight, which is crazy given where they've been. It's 4 straight defeats, 3 wins in 15. It has landed them there, as you say. They've got Friday night football against Bristol City, which we'll discuss in a moment, but he seems to be spinning a lot of plates. Michael Carrick doesn't seem to know his strongest 11. He spoke about a balance between attack and defence. He hasn't seemed to find that yet. You look at the form of his key players. You look at the injuries to his key players. Now, the only thing that he can maybe latch on to is they hit similar form at this time last year as well. And they managed to turn that around. But as you say, something seems different with him himself. You look at his post-match. He looks slightly deflated. I don't see that kind of fire in his belly. Like, I don't know the guy. As it's just me as an inexperienced pundit here, but it just looks to me like, as you say, there's something missing in the jigsaw. You mentioned Iheanacho, some terrible stats. 131 minutes, he's played 4 shots, 0 shots on target, 2 touches in the opposition box. Whittaker's come in. I don't think he's won a match since he's arrived. It's little things like that are going against him at the moment. Poor decisions.
Yeah, look, but you have to admit that on paper, the sign of Iheanacho and Whittaker were good bits of business for him. You would have thought that those 2 guys would have come in and, I wouldn't say hit the ground running, but would have been having some sort of impact right from the off. I know Iheanacho maybe hasn't been playing as much football, but we're talking about a guy here who's mostly played at the top level, international. So yeah, it's like you said. Look, again, injuries. Yes, they've had some bad injuries. They have struggled a bit with that of late, but I always think that's a bit of a cop out, mate, with any manager, because over the course of a season, especially in the Championship, mate, where you're playing so many games, 2 games a week for good proportions of the season, every team's going to be struggling with injuries. And like I said, they have got one of the better squads in the division. So I just don't think you can use that as a valid argument. You look at some of the teams that have been dropping points against of late. All those teams would say, look, what we'd do for just some of the guys that are sat on your bench, likes of Oxford and some of these guys that they've been dropping points against, Portsmouth and so on. So yeah, I agree with you, Matt. I think there's definitely a confidence issue there. They're really struggling with confidence. Like you said, Carrick does definitely seem a bit deflated of late. He almost seems like he's struggling to get his head round as to why they're on this really bad run of form. What's going on with the players? They obviously had Tommy Conway come back in their last game, so they would have been hoping that would have maybe injected a bit of positivity into the team, but it didn't. Look, Ben Doak, he's a big miss, isn't he, for him, undoubtedly. But I just still think they should be coping better, mate. It is very odd. And look, you're right. They've got Bristol City next, which is a massive game considering Bristol City now sit.
Yeah, I was going to say, not even just positionally, like for his job, because if it's 5 straight defeats, you've just had the vote of confidence. I think he'd probably, not got a crystal ball, but I think he'll walk. I think if they don't win on Friday night, and if it's a bad performance, he'll walk. Tommy Conway, who you mentioned, he took to social media afterwards, felt the need to kind of apologise and defend the side, which is telling really, because once the locals and the fans start turning on you, it's a difficult road back.
Oh yeah, that's it. Well, look, this is probably the first time where the proportion of the fan base are turning on him. And look, he's still very, very new to this whole managerial game, isn't he? This is the biggest challenge he's encountered to date, undoubtedly. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if he can overcome this or not. He's at this moment in time, he's got quite high stock, hasn't he? He's been linked with a couple of Prem jobs up until now.
Teams... I saw guys shouting to get him back at Old Trafford. They've had enough of Amarin already. So
yeah. So his stock's really high, and I don't. He will want to turn this round. He will want to try and turn this around and try and get them back into those playoff teams. But you're right. I just at this moment in time, I just can't see it happening. I know it's this bunch of teams chasing for the playoffs. It's absolutely bonkers, but I think probably they are arguably the poorest team in that bunch at the moment, aren't they? Because of, like you said, the how little they've won of late. 4 defeats on the bounce, a couple of tough games around the corner against teams who are in that mix. You're right. If they don't pick up any points in the next few games, then some serious pressure on him. And like you said, will Middlesbrough, will it force their hand? Will they have to try and make a change. You know, a dying death, isn't it? You know, we're getting into the last leg of the season. You know, that's some risk, isn't it? It's a tough call for them, isn't it? A real tough decision for them.
Yeah, well, I think Steve Gibson, barring Carrick walking, will give him to the end of the season. If they don't make the playoffs, then they'll be a part in the ways for sure.
I think so, yeah.
Just on the playoffs, then we'll finish up on there. You know, your own club, West Brom, are kind of hanging on in there. They got a point at the weekend down at Millwall. I saw some stuff on X. You know, some fans already, giving Mowbray pelters. He's not been back in the building 5 minutes. You know, what should say? It was always going to be a kind of stop-start end to the season, given the squad and where it's at.
It's a tricky one, mate. It's a tricky one because you know me. I was always a massive Carlos Corberán fan, and I always said that he was squeezing extra out of that bunch of players. He was getting more out of them than where I felt that we probably should be sat in the division. And one thing that's happened since Mowbray's come in is we've lost a lot of that kind of defensive stability, but not really improved too much going forward, which was the hope. That was the main hope of the fan base was, it'd been a bit of a tough watch at times under Corberán. Mowbray was maybe going to improve us going forward, and look, he was able to make a couple of good additions in the transfer window, most notably Adam Armstrong. But yeah, other than that Portsmouth win, which we were fortunate enough to go along to, it's not been great, mate. It's not been great, and like I said, that there's most definitely a bit of pressure there already, because I do think, with the signings that we made, I think that has added extra pressure now for us to lock down one of those playoff spots. But I feel like we've regressed as a team since Corberán left and Mowbray's come in. So yeah, I have no idea how we're still. Again, it just shows you how mad this playoff hunt, shall we call it, just is, because we've been really inconsistent under Mowbray, yet we still find ourselves sat in sixth position. So
is there a feel that Coventry's form is really, really good at the moment, arguably the best in the division?
Yeah.
And Blackburn are also picking up points, so you're kind of looking over your shoulder at the moment rather than looking up.
Yeah, that's it, 100%, mate. Coventry are one of the informed teams. I felt they were unfortunate. I think they were quite fortunate to get the 3 points against Sheffield Wednesday. I caught up with the highlights, but this is what you want. This is what you need, isn't it? You're putting a bit of a run together. You're getting wins. You're playing well. You're getting 3 points, but then also you're not particularly playing well, but you're still managing to get 3 points. It just all seems like it's coming together for them, doesn't it, at the right time? So yeah, they're the team definitely to watch out for in that playoff hunt. And like you said, Blackburn, they've surprised everyone, and they must have probably surprised a few of their own fans as well. In that, I felt that most people felt that the loss of Eustace was going to have a negative effect on him, but it hasn't. It almost looks like it's kind of taken off the shackles a little bit. They look like they're a bit more adventurous going forward, and in their attacking approach in the last couple of games. Like we touched on in the last pod, I was really impressed with how they set up and approached the game against ourselves and got the win. So yeah, like I said, it's this is the thing. I know it's crazy tight in there still, but I do feel that teams will start putting a little bit of a run together, and if we can't do that ourselves, it won't be long before we do what Middlesbrough have done, in that all of a sudden, we've gone from 5th, 6th, to finding ourselves in 11th place. What's 40? If we're on 48, we're one win away from 10th, mate. So it's crazy close. So we've got to book our ideas up, starting at the game at the weekend. Because as well, I feel this is the other thing has been disappointing for me, is that we've been dropping points against teams who we should be getting points against, the likes of, it's no offence, but, you look at these teams on paper, the likes of Swansea, the likes of Millwall, and Plymouth. Exactly, mate. We've got tougher games coming up. This is the thing that concerns me as well, is that we're dropping points. This month of February on paper was looking like a good month, to get a bit of a run together and put some points on the board, because we've got a real tough month coming up in March, and we just simply haven't done that. So, yeah, I am concerned, mate. And like I said to you, I don't want to say we're a fickle bunch, but it won't take long before, the fans get on Moby's back, and then, like you said, it never ends well, does it? Once the fan base start getting on the manager's back, it never does. So, yeah, we'll see, mate.
Just on a lighter note, obviously we mentioned the other night about Blackburn's upcoming trip to Derby. It's on the 8th of March. I saw today, Blackburn don't travel in huge numbers, but they've actually sold out their allocation. They're requesting another almost 2,000 tickets. Now, make of that what you will. Whether Derby will give them that, who knows? But
that's a bit embarrassing, though, that for me, mate, to be honest with you. Like, look, I don't think that doesn't look good for Blackburn Rovers as a fan base, in my opinion, because obviously that's demand for tickets is obviously just come for the fact that the fans want to go along, them sat hopefully, still in those playoff positions, and Derby still struggling down the bottom end of the table, and give it some to Eustace. But that's a bit embarrassing, in my opinion. Why aren't more of those fans? I'm not saying all those fans. I can understand it to an extent, but why aren't they getting better numbers? Most away games. Those guys are all turning up now just to get at Eustace. I don't think that paints a good picture, to be honest with you.
I don't think, if you're Derby, you probably don't give them, but whether they have to or not, I don't know what the stipulation is. We'll end to see how that one develops. That's plenty. I've got a couple of West Brom questions for you, but we'll keep them for Thursday night, because we are going to be there on Saturday. We're hoping to bring a bit of good luck back, see if we can get 5 more goals and hopefully a clean sheet. This one, tougher test, I think, in Oxford, certainly. Bit more robust, certainly, than Pompey have been on the road. So looking forward to it. Hopefully we can get you a bit more chipper than you have been in the last 8 or 9 minutes there. Had to sort of come in and turn you around. But listen, it's not all doom and gloom. As I say, we will be back on Thursday night. If you've joined in at any point, give us a like, give us a follow, give us a subscribe. Get over to X, get involved there. The TikTok pages, some of the videos are popping off. I don't know what's happening there, but if you've enjoyed them, leave a comment. And as I say, we'll be back on Thursday night. My thanks to you, Tom. Have a good evening. See you later on. Enjoy your football.